Welcome to another installment of Comparative Reasoning. I'm your host, Sidra Owens. You told me to check out that video of CultofDusty talking about how Black Lives Matter, the organization, the movement, how it sucks. And he was going on to talk about how he's been deemed a racist by his liberal friends and, followers, and how he lost all kinds of subscribers after saying what he said. So I expected to hear a lot of things that I couldn't agree with. But when I listened to it, it wasn't all bullshit. A lot of it made sense. It's just that he's too logical. And I guess I can go on to explain why. Black Lives Matter started off as just a hashtag because people were alarmed at the rate at which unarmed black men were being killed. Now, granted, if an armed black man runs at a cop with a gun, nobody's going to fault him for shooting him. That makes sense to me. But if an unarmed black man is pulled for tail lights or suspicion or whatever, he has no weapon, he doesn't attack, and he gets killed, that's something wrong with that. It was happening too much. It's always been happening too much. And so that's where the original hashtag came from, which developed into a movement, which it does hamper itself, because you can't get anyone to pay attention to you if you're calling for the death of cops, then you're no better than they are. Then you're a part of the problem. Then he went on to talk about how blacks are in such situations because they're more prone to violent crimes, more prone to criminality. And honestly, black on black crime isn't any better or worse than white on white crime. You are not likely to go and attack someone that's different than you. You're always going to attack your own. So it'll be blacks on blacks, whites on whites, Indians on Indians, Native Americans on Native Americans, Asians on Asians. That's just the way it goes. So to me, that doesn't hold a whole lot of water. And then on top of that, he was comparing the rates at which whites get killed by police, in relation to blacks getting killed. Well, okay, a lot of whites get killed by police. That's understood, but there are a whole lot more whites than there are blacks, so that makes sense. It's about the number of blacks who get killed in relation to the number of actual blacks in the country. That's too much. And then, okay, so they're more prone to criminality. They're more prone to have interactions with the police because they are most likely to break the law. Okay, if there's truth in that, don't just say that and then at the end of the show, you have to get into why. Why is that the case? And that case cannot be dissected logically. Blacks are pushed together in small, cramped neighborhoods in inner cities or neighborhoods where prospects are low, schools are poor, and if you want to make ends meet, you can either get several part-time jobs or you can start doing some criminal activity. It's sad, but it's true. But if it was a bunch of whites in the same situation, they would be doing the same thing to make ends meet. So with Latinos, so with Asians. So it's not about the color. It's about the circumstances. It's about the classism that links to the racism that causes the criminality. And no one wants to talk about that. No one wants to talk about the culture that has led to how things are now, the history that has led to how things are now. They want to wipe it under the rug, and blacks are they're just angry, violent just because. And that's not what it is. The truth of it is, it's a cycle. It's a cycle that began a long time ago, and no one wants to lend credence to the fact that culturally, African Americans are scarred from their history. If you take a little boy and you molest him for 15 years of his life and then turn him loose on the world, there is a high probability that when he has his own little boy or girl, he is going to do the same to them. Molest them for 15 years and then loose them onto the world. And he or she may do the same thing. It's a cycle, and it will continue until it is recognized and broken. And it is ingrained in that child, in that family. Well, if you see it on a macro scale, it's the exact same way. A history of degradation that began in slavery, of seen as less, as being seen as non-human, it ingrains a sense of self-loathing. And they don't want to be any better because they don't know. They proliferate it in their families. And it has been in many families for years. And it's not going to stop until it's recognized and stopped. But there are so many places where they're still in the midst of that. They're stuck. They're stuck in the cycle of poverty and poor education with very little means to get out. So what else is there than crime to put food on your table? Because you have to eat, you want to survive. No one's interested in breaking the cycle. They just want to put a label on it and then try their rhetoric and their talking points to get elected, to make more money, so they can put a boot to your neck to push you further down and move themselves further up. Classism has to be addressed, linked to the racism. And the racism has to be addressed from where it comes from. I think the only point that he was trying to drive home, and he did, is that the Black Lives Matter movement is bullshit. And so him using those statistics to make them look like the fools they are for their pushing their talking points, I get that. But those statistics also tell the story that he wasn't telling. The classism in this country is so severe. It's us against them when it comes to the cops, but it's us poor against them, because if you got money, for the most part, you don't have a problem. White people in Beverly Hills aren't getting shot and having to hold up their arms and protest. No, because they have money, they may have power, they may have connections, and if they do good for them, they're not getting harassed. Hell, it's not their fault. It's the cops' fault for not treating everybody the same. So you're black and you're poor, or you're black. You're white and you're poor. You're Latino. You're Latino and you're poor. You are disabled, autistic, deaf, blind, mentally disabled, or a child. You are in trouble. That's everybody else. That's the rest of the country, and that includes white people too. It's a problem about classism, which ties to racism, and it leads to a sense of power on the side of the police. You can't challenge me. You don't have any power. You have to do what I say. You don't have any rights. And if you act like you do, I can gun you down and still go home to my family while you're riding. That's the problem that needs to be solved, along many others.